Hello and welcome to this training all about the new third grade SOLs entitled The World. We are going to go over everything you need to know about these new SOLs in this training. And before we get started, I just want to thank you for being here. Vestal's 21st Century Classroom offers free teacher trainings every summer. And this summer, we're doing something a little bit different. If you've watched our teacher trainings in the past, you've probably noticed that we rent out a studio and we film these really high quality trainings. And this year, we're doing more of a webinar format with a slide deck. And the reason for this change is because a lot of the information has been coming out very last minute. And so we want to be able to get this information out to you as quickly as possible. And this is the best way for us to do that. Now, the reason I'm sharing all of that with you is because I would love to get some feedback from you. If you have ever attended one of our teacher trainings before, shoot me an email and let me know which format do you prefer. Do you prefer the format that's a little bit fancier that we've used in previous years, or do you like this? That type of feedback ensures that we are creating information that is most helpful for you. Now, I don't want to waste any of your time, so let's go ahead and dig straight in. Now, very quickly, the things that we are going to be going over in this training is the timeline for implementation. I'm going to be sharing information about the new instructional guides, which are replacing the curriculum framework. I got to attend a training with the VDOE about these new instructional guides a few months ago, and so I am going to be sharing with you everything that we learned at that training. I am going to be giving you a detailed breakdown of these new SOLs for third grade. And last but not least, we'll be talking about where you can find SOL aligned curriculum and resources aligned to these new SOLs. I also just want to let you know a little bit about who is this voice that you are listening to. I am Megan Vestal. I am a former upper elementary teacher in Virginia. I started Vestal's 21st Century Classroom in 2015. I was diagnosed with a medical condition that took me out of the classroom, and I was bedridden for about 2 years. So I started this curriculum company from my bed, and initially we created curriculum for teachers all over the world. But I realized that my passion is working with Virginia teachers and creating SOL aligned curriculum, because when I was a Virginia teacher, it was really hard to find quality resources aligned to the SOLs. So I found that I had to do everything myself, and that led to some major burnout. So my goal is really to be a one-stop shop for Virginia teachers so that you can find all of the resources, the trainings, just everything that you need to know in one place. And since my expertise is upper elementary, we do specialize in grades 3 through 5. And a few years ago, about 5 years ago, I started the Virginia Teacher Club. And basically, the Virginia Teacher Club is everything that I would have wanted as a Virginia teacher. Everything in the curriculum library for the Virginia Teacher Club is organized by SOL. So all that you have to do is click on the SOL that you are teaching to instantly open all of your lesson plans and resources to teach that SOL. Now, the reason I'm sharing a little bit about my background with you is because I want you to know that all of this information that I'm sharing with you and everything with these new social studies standards, we have been working on this for months and months already. My team and I have spent hours and hours just studying these standards, updating our curriculum to align to the new standards, going to trainings, and I don't want you to have to spend hours and hours of your time learning the new SOLs and getting all of the information that we've gotten. So I'm going to try to share with you everything that I've learned as quickly as possible so that you can get back to the things that matter to you, whether that's teaching your students, being with your family, taking some personal time. You shouldn't have to spend hours and hours of your free time learning these new SOLs. I also want to let you know that there is a link below this video where you can grab my free guide on these new SOLs, and this is really helpful to keep in a binder throughout the school year. In this guide, you will find every single SOL listed in a chart, and next to the new SOL, you will find the old SOL so you can compare the two, and then next to those, you will also find a detailed list of all of the changes between the two. So it's really really helpful to keep this guide in a binder, and when you start teaching a new SOL for the first time this school year, you can open to that SOL and see exactly what has changed and exactly what you need to do different with your instruction this year. Let's talk about the timeline very briefly. I'm not going to go over this too much because we're here. We're at the point where it's supposed to be implemented, but I did just want to put this on the screen because the timeline for these SOLs has changed a lot. As a matter of fact, in the 15 to 20 years that I have been working with Virginia standards, I have never seen a timeline for new SOLs change so many times. But the important thing that you need to know is that this school year, these SOLs are to be fully taught and tested. I have received some emails just asking questions about if they will be tested this year, and the answer is yes. These are to be fully taught and tested this school year. Now, the VDOE released some goals related to these new SOLs, so I want to go over those with you so that as we are discussing the changes to the SOLs, you can see where the mindset came from when those changes were implemented. So one of the goals the VDOE has is to improve the vertical coherence between grade levels. So they're trying to build more connections between the grade levels rather than just having one topic that's taught in one grade level and then a completely different topic that's taught the next grade level. They want there to be more connections that students can make from year to year. The next goal is an application and connection of concepts and themes within and across grade levels. So the biggest thing that I've noticed with this is you're going to see some more tie-in to science with these SOLs, and your students are going to be able to make more connections to things that they're learning in other subjects as well. The third goal is to incorporate inquiry-based practices, and no longer are the SOLs just identifying and naming and memorizing information. There is a big push for students to really apply information and to really dig deeper and to relate concepts to the modern world. So you're going to see a lot more analyzation and application used within these new SOLs rather than lower level skills such as just identifying. And last but not least, this goal does not apply as much to third grade. It's more so the grade levels where it's just history being taught, for example, US history, but there are going to be more social science strands embedded into each of the SOLs. So more civics, geography, and economics. These things have already been a part of the third grade SOLs. So like I said, this is more so with the history standards where there wasn't a lot of those social science strands embedded before. It's being embedded into those grade levels now. So a few changes that you are going to see across all of the grade levels in Virginia. I've already talked about this, but there is a greater emphasis on explaining, analyzing, and applying. They really want students using higher level thinking skills with social studies and applying social studies skills more. The other thing that you are going to notice across all grade levels is there is more African American, Indigenous peoples, and women's history throughout the SOLs. Now, I'm going to be honest, with third grade, I did not notice this as much as I have with most other grade levels. And once again, this is being more so done in the grade levels where it is full-on history being taught. So in the US history and in the Virginia studies, we're seeing a big push for more diversity in the people that are being taught. But because we don't really have specific people that are being taught too much throughout third grade, you're not going to see this as much as in the other grade levels. Let's talk a little bit about the new instructional guides. As I previously mentioned, these are replacing the curriculum framework. And from what we have been told about these instructional guides is the instructional guides are more of a living document compared to the curriculum framework. With the curriculum framework, those had to be reviewed by the Board of Education and approved. And once they were approved, changes really couldn't be made to them. These instructional guides are not being approved by the Board of Education. So that gives the VDOE greater flexibility in being able to update and edit them and provide more information as time goes on. So there's 3 sections to these instructional guides, and I want to break each of them down for you and share with you some information that I learned about each of these sections when I went to the VDOE training for the instructional guides. Now for each SOL, you're going to see these 3 sections, and the first one you're going to see is understanding the standard. This is pretty similar to on the previous curriculum framework. I believe this was called Essential Understandings before. And this is just a breakdown with understandings and key concepts to help you in your planning. So this isn't necessarily instructional based, but it just gives a little bit of background information about the standard. Now, one thing that I want to point out that's different about these instructional guides is you are going to see hyperlinks embedded all throughout the instructional guides. Now, previously, I was told that these would have interactive elements that you could use with students. And I'm going to be honest with you, as I have been going through the instructional guides and clicking on each of these hyperlinks, I really don't find that many of them to be student friendly. The passages and reading materials that are provided are way above a 3rd grade reading level, and so students are probably just not going to sit and read those things. There are some hyperlinks that provide images or maps that you may be able to share with students, but in general, I'm finding most of these hyperlinks are going to be more helpful just to give teachers background information. I still encourage you to click on all of them because maybe you can find something that is helpful for your students, but I just kind of want to set expectations regarding these hyperlinks because as I started clicking on them, personally, I was a little disappointed with what I found. So I just want to set the expectations there, but I do encourage you to click on those and just see what's there. Now, the next section that you are going to find in the instructional guides for every single standard is the concepts and connections. And the most important thing that you want to pay attention to in this section is the supporting questions. Now, during the training that I attended, we were told that on your assessments, you should be modeling the types of questions that are listed in this supporting questions section. And the way it was worded to us during this training is that these will likely be the types of questions that you will see on the SOL test. So they may not be word for word the same, but taking a look at these questions is going to give you a good idea of the types of questions that your students will see on the test at the end of the year. So it's good to get them practicing with the supporting questions that are listed here. And last but not least, the 3rd section is called Skills in Practice. And this section outlines activities that you can use in the classroom. And these activities are specifically linked to the history and social science skills, which we're going to talk about skills in just a minute. But I do want to emphasize that everything listed in this section is not required. But as you are planning out your lessons and thinking about how you want to teach everything, there are a lot of good ideas in this section that you can use. So make sure to check that out, and it may inspire you as you are doing your lesson planning. I want to emphasize a direct quote that was said during the training, and that was that these 3 sections, so understanding the standard, supporting question, and skills and practice, provide everything needed to teach the standard. It was asked several times during the training what information from the instructional guide could be used on the SOL test. And every time that question was asked, this was the direct quote that was given. So I think at this point, it's safe to say that anything from these 3 sections is fair game when it comes to testing. We haven't seen a test aligned to these new standards just yet. We won't for several more months. So until we're able to get our eyes on an actual test, it's just safe to assume that everything from these 3 sections is fair game. Now let's jump over to the social studies skills that we were just talking about. So one thing that is a little different across all of the grade levels is the skills that come at the beginning of the SOLs. Now, previously, skills were always listed as the first SOL. That is no longer the case. Instead of being a numbered SOL, you're just going to see skills and have those listed before the numbered SOLs begin. Now, I don't know this for certain, but I think that the reason for this is because the VDOE wants to make it clear that these skills should be taught throughout the school year, not in isolation. For several years, I get emails, I get a few every single year asking me, why don't I have a unit aligned specifically to that first SOL? And I would always respond and say, well, these are skills that should be taught throughout the school year. They shouldn't be taught in isolation. So I think there was some confusion there. And by not numbering that SOL, I think it makes it a little more clear that you should be incorporating these skills into all of the other SOLs. Now, you may be wondering, how and where do I include these skills? Well, the instructional guide gives you some suggestions. So the first place you can look for suggestions is on the instructional guide in that third section that we just talked about. The other place you can look in the instructional guide is before there is that detailed breakdown of the SOLs. You are going to see information and charts that looks just like this, where it's going to break down each skill. So one of the skills is economic decision making. And in grades 3 and 4, this is letter G on the list of skills. And then as you look here, it can show you exactly how you can implement this skill throughout the year. So you see lots of examples right here, and it will also help you connect it back to specific SOLs and units so that you know how to cover this skill. So there's the two places that you can go to look for ideas in the instructional guide as you're thinking about how to teach these skills this school year. Now let's go ahead and dive into the SOLs themselves and really talk about what has changed. Now, I do want to give a big congratulations to you third grade teachers, because I will tell you that as I have been going through each of the grade levels, there are some grade levels where the changes are big. I just finished doing a training for 5th grade a few days ago, and there was a lot to talk about. You guys are lucky though. I have found the changes for 3rd grade are pretty minor, and honestly, I like most of the changes for 3rd grade because the changes less have to do with content and more so have to do with organization. So you will remember with the previous set of SOLs, the information was very scattered throughout the SOL. So when you were teaching ancient civilizations, information about the ancient civilizations and what was to be taught was scattered throughout several SOLs. Now you're going to see that things have been grouped together in a single SOL so that you're not having to look all over the place to figure out what it is that students are supposed to know. So the first SOL is now civics, and this is probably the SOL that has undergone the biggest changes out of everything. And so the changes that you are going to see here is the list of civic responsibilities has changed. Before there were things like trustworthiness and honesty, and now the list of civic responsibilities has changed more so to government related things such as paying taxes, running for office, serving on a jury. So those are listed, as you can see here, in the SOL itself. The other thing that has changed is there is more of the Constitution and its relationship to civics in this SOL. So students are now expected to know what rights they have under the First Amendment and the significance of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights as it relates to civics. And the last change for this SOL is responsible digital citizenship. So talking about what does it mean to be a citizen in the real world and online. The second SOL is world geography, and the big changes here are students are now expected to be able to identify all of the continents and all of the oceans. Previously, there were just certain continents and oceans that they were identifying, but now it's all of the major ones. Students are also expected to be able to describe the equator, the prime meridian, and the 4 hemispheres, and use this to help them better describe the locations of the continents and the oceans. And last but not least, the major rivers and mountain ranges is no longer part of this SOL. It has been moved to the next SOL. So that is what you're going to see here. And this is the geography of ancient societies. Now, what I encourage you to do is rather than teaching 3.3 in isolation, teach it with each of the ancient world cultures SOL. So as you're teaching ancient Egypt, make sure you are including the major bodies of water, the major mountain ranges, and how geography impacted the daily lives of individuals in ancient societies. There is a greater emphasis within this standard on being able to explain how geography impacted daily life. But make sure you're teaching this specific SOL across all of your ancient world culture SOLs. So that takes us to the ancient world cultures. The only difference you are going to see with each of the ancient world cultures is the organization. All of the ancient world cultures they're expected to know are the same. All of the information they are expected to know related to each culture is pretty much the same. The only difference is, like I previously said, you are now not going to have to scan a bunch of SOLs to figure out what students are supposed to know about each of the cultures. It's all in one SOL. So 3.4 is Egypt. Everything you need to know is right here. But like I said, no major content changes here. Same with China. Everything is in 3.5. Ancient Greece is 3.6. Ancient Rome is 3.7, and ancient Mali is 3.8. So no major content changes, and like I said, make sure you are including SOL 3.3 into each of these SOLs as well. Now, 3.9 is US government, and this is the one organizational piece that I did not understand as I was going through these new SOLs. To me, it makes sense that 3.1 civics and 3.9 US government should be taught together because there is a lot of overlap between these two SOLs. And so I do wish the SOLs were listed side by side because I do think that when you're teaching these, you're going to want to teach them together or back to back because of the overlap. Now, within this SOL, like with civics, this is an area where you're going to see some bigger changes. Students are now expected to identify the 3 branches of government and the 3 levels of government. And then they're supposed to examine the Constitution to explain why our government is structured that way with different branches and levels. And that's where you're going to see a lot of overlap here, is there is an emphasis on using the Constitution to back up and support information about our government, just like you saw in 3.1. And then the last thing that's a little bit different with this SOL is students are now going to compare our government to other governments a little bit and just grasping the concept that not all governments are exactly the same. And the last SOL is going to be economics. This SOL is almost exactly the same as the previous economic SOLs. The only difference is, once again, the organization, where instead of economics being spread across 3 SOLs, it's now just in 1 SOL. The only real difference that I noticed here was students are now describing production, distribution, and consumption of goods and services, but otherwise everything else looks the same here. So you can see as we've gone through these standards, changes are really minor in terms of content, and the organization is really improved. Now, I've got some exciting news. You may be wondering, with the changes to these SOLs, where do I find new resources aligned to them? It can be hard enough to find resources aligned to SOLs that have been around for years, let alone new SOLs, and especially with us not getting information about these new SOLs until just recently. But my team and I have been working around the clock since the new instructional guide came out a few weeks ago to make sure you have everything you need in time for back to school. So coming this summer, you will be able to find your detailed unit plans, passages with comprehension questions, task cards, escape rooms, and study guides all aligned to these brand new SOLs. I'm very excited. We are one of the first and only companies that are going to have these resources truly updated and ready to go in time for back to school because of all of the delays. I have been watching and talking to other people, and most other even big box companies are having trouble getting everything updated in time for back to school. So I'm very excited that we are going to be able to provide this for Virginia teachers. And then we've also got lots of plans to add new things throughout the school year that will be aligned. So SOL test prep activities, Jeopardy games, a lot of things that will be able to help you teach these SOLs and then prepare for testing at the end of the year. If you are not already on our email list, make sure that you get on that because that is how we will be notifying everyone when these are available. Now, just to give you an idea of some of the changes that we've made to these resources, obviously everything has been updated to align with these new SOLs, but we have also gone through and made some other big changes. One is improved readability. We have a lot of passages with comprehension questions in our materials, and we really worked hard to make sure that they are on more of a third grade reading level and easier for third graders to read and comprehend. The other thing that we did was we really looked at accessibility. So we looked at the fonts that we're using, we looked at images that we're using, and ensuring that those are accessible and easy to read for all students. Now, where can you find all of these resources? There are a couple places where you will be able to get them. First, the Virginia Teacher Club that I shared with you guys earlier, they get first access to all new and updated resources all the time. So everything will be uploaded to the Virginia Teacher Club first. If you are on the email list, you will get a notification when we open the Virginia Teacher Club for new members. We are planning to open August 1st, but for people on the email list, we will likely be sending out an email sometime in July that you can get in a little bit earlier if you want to start planning earlier. All of our resources will also be made available on my website, which is listed here, vestal's21stcenturyclassroom.com. And you just click on the shop tab at the top of the homepage where the arrow is pointing to. And then the resources will also be made available on my Teachers Pay Teachers store, which is Vestal's 21st Century Classroom. And I do get a lot of questions. What's the difference between purchasing from your website versus purchasing on TPT? A couple big differences. One is when you purchase through my website, you get all customer service through me. Whereas on TPT controls all transactions. So I am not able to offer refunds or discounts through TPT. And when it comes to troubleshooting and customer service, you're going to have to work through them. Whereas on my website, I deal with everything myself. The other big difference here is when you purchase through my website, the purchase goes 100% back to our company versus on TPT, they take a large cut of the purchases. So thank you to those who do purchase through the website because that really benefits our company. So that is all that I have for you guys today. I hope this information is helpful. I hope it takes a little bit of stress off as you are preparing to teach these new SOLs. And hopefully you're excited to see that the third grade changes are minor. Like I said, I'm doing trainings with fourth and fifth grade, and those trainings are going a whole lot longer because there's a whole lot more information. But don't forget to grab this free guide. The link is below the video. If you would like to keep this in a binder throughout the year, it is a great reference tool. We know thousands of teachers that have used our guides for math and ELA when those SOL changes took place. So make sure to check that out. My email address is on the screen if you have questions, as well as our website if you want to find out more information. But thank you for joining me, and I will see you in our next training.